Hey guys, so I know I'm really late to the party on this, as per usual, but I wanted to talk about the movie that came out last year, May, December, which was loosely based on the Mary Kay Letourneau case. And for those living under a rock who don't know about the Mary Kay Letourneau case, I think it came to light maybe in 1997. It was a huge deal. It was termed a scandal, but I really don't think scandal is the appropriate term for child rape. So, yeah, trigger warning there, it does involve child rape. And basically, it was I think, 33-year-old teacher who raped her 12-year-old student. The teacher's name was Mary Kay Letourneau, and the student's name was Billy Falau. Mary Kay Letourneau has passed since then. No sympathy for her there, which I'll talk about briefly later. Um, but Billy is still alive, and his children, which he had with her, are still alive. And it's a crazy story. I mean, like, we hear many stories like this of teachers raping their students, so it's not a huge surprise that stuff like this happens. Um, but the real twist in it is that, after she got out of jail, which was, as I talked about in my Baby Reindeer review, it was just a slap on the wrist. They got together and they got married and they raised their family. So the psychological manipulation in that is just crazy. May December is loosely based on kind of the aftermath of that. Um, and I'm surprised. I think it got nominated for several Oscars, but it did not win a single thing. Um, and I'm really surprised. It really seemed like an Oscars kind of movie, being a drama, but I guess the Oscars are finally being a little less prejudiced now. And by a little less prejudiced, I mean that they're actually considering movies like Poor Things and Everything Everywhere All at Once to be actual movies and not just sci-fi movies, which they consider like shitty along with horror movies. So it seemed like a type of movie that the Academy might like, but I guess because of the nature of its subject matter, it might have been like they might be like, oh, I don't know if we want to give awards to a movie that concerns child rape. I thought that the performances in this movie were great. Charles Melton, I think, who plays the Billy character. Again, all the names have been changed, and there's there's kind of a made up element with Natalie Portman's character coming in and and um, taking notes on the relationship. Although apparently there actually was a similar situation that happened in real life, and apparently Mary Kay Letourneau like happily obliged to this woman who was gonna portray her like on a Lifetime movie or whatever. And as Ray DeGlaire pointed out, like, imagine you're a pedophile, you're like a legally criminally convicted pedophile, and then somebody is trying to make a movie on your crimes as a pedophile, and you're like, yeah, totally. I mean, the cognitive dissonance is just crazy. And if you watch Mary Kay Letourneau videos, she still does not understand what she did wrong. It is just infuriating and insane. And Billy doesn't understand what she did wrong. Like, he thinks he's still in love with her. And I mean, you have to think about the level of grooming and manipulation to go to that. I mean, like, some people say, well, what's wrong? They're consenting adults now. It's like, yeah, but are they really, like somebody who's been groomed literally since the age of 12 and potentially even younger, because apparently they met when he was 8? And Mary Kay Letourneau was already talking about the time about him apparently looking up her skirt. Like, who the fuck thinks that about an 8-year-old? Grooming someone from that young an age, like all the way up to when they're an adult, and then when they're adult, continuing to emotionally manipulate them. I mean, that should be considered a crime in and of itself, because that is just so much psychological damage. But yeah, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the double standard. The nice bro nice people. The That episode of South Park was actually very much based on the Mary Kay Letourneau case, And it's hilarious for being just spot on how people are about the double standard, like.
One of the teachers is having sex with a student.
Oh my God! This is terrible. You did the right thing telling the police, Brad. Now, who is the teacher? What's his name?
Well, it isn't a guy teacher, it's a woman.
A woman?
Yeah, she's having sex with a boy.
Oh, but she's ugly, right?
Well, no, not really. It's the kindergarten teacher, Miss Stevenson.
The blonde?
Yeah.
Some young boy's having sex with Miss Stevenson?
Yes.
Nice.
Like, oh, I don't see what she did wrong. And then when you say, well, what if a man did that to a 12-year-old girl? And I was watching a documentary on this, and, one of the lawyers pointed out, if a man did this to a 12-year-old girl, we would be considering the death penalty, not 8 years in prison. Whenever you ask that question, what if a man did this to a 12-year-old girl? They go, well, it's different for little girls and little boys. It's like, really? Like, for some reason, the age of consent, like, what is the age of consent for little boys then? Is it 10? Is it 8? Is it 2 months? Like, seriously, like, how young does a boy have to be before it's considered pedophilia and not, quote unquote, consensual? Quote unquote, he wanted it. Like, for girls, it seems to be until they're 18, but for boys, there's really no limit, basically. And that's a crying shame. That's just horrible that we don't consider male victims of female perpetrated pedophilia the same as we consider it the other way around. And, as Sean had pointed out, like, there's plenty of male perpetrators who molest little boys, and we consider that just as disgusting as the little girls being molested. So what's so different when it's women? And, unfortunately, there's this horribly sexist, long-held view that men just want sex all the time with women and that they can't say no to a woman. And that, conversely, women never want sex. And so a man has to be very, very careful when trying to have a sexual relationship with a woman. But when it comes to a man, he should just accept all of it. And basically, men can never be raped by women, which is just disgusting. I've talked about it several times, obviously. But yeah, this should have never been allowed to happen. And the fact that it was allowed to go on for as long as it did really diminishes my faith in humanity. But yeah, I think May December was a really great movie in terms of exposing how manipulative this kind of relationship can be and just how wrong it is. And Charles Melton, the actor who played the villain character, was amazing. There's a scene in particular where he's with his kids, and his kids, I think, are smoking weed. And he's never tried weed, despite being like a 34-year-old man, and his kids are like, they're more like 22. Of course, because he was 12 when he had them, which is just bleh. And basically the relationship between the kids and him is more like a brother, than a father. And that's just really wrong and unfortunate that the kids have to grow up in an environment like that. And, somebody pointed out in a documentary on Mary Kay Letourneau, it was never like a husband and wife relationship. It was always like a mother and son relationship, which, it's just really unfortunate and gross. And finally, I recognized besides obviously the main actors, Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, I recognized, what's his name? The guy who plays the Riddler in the Gotham series. He did a really great job as one of Mary Kay Letourneau's sons from her previous marriage, and kind of how he got messed up, by, at the age of 12, finding out that she had gotten pregnant off of a student who was his age. I mean, imagine that. Imagine that, finding out that your parent raped a kid that was your age. I mean, that's just horrific. So I think it was really great that they explored that. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about the death of Mary Kay Letourneau, because that may be the only good thing that's ever come out in this story. Now, I usually don't, actively want people to die, but, offending pedophiles, they're pretty up there in the list of people I want to die. So she got cancer in her ass. Insert South Park clip here.
Didn't you hear the letter? This poor kid has cancer in his ass.
Yeah. So she got what she deserved, hopefully. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.